10 reasons why GMRS is not better than ham radio, but that doesn't necessarily mean you should ignore it either. Check this out.
CQ CQ Park on the air, Kilo Charlie 5, Hotel Whiskey Bravo.
Good afternoon. Thanks for watching the channel today. My name is Jason. I'm KC5HWB in the ham radio world, and I'm WRFK311 in the GMRS world. I have both a GMRS and a ham radio license. This video is a response to Randy from Not a Rubicon, because he recorded a video called 10 Reasons Why GMRS is Better Than Ham Radio, and why so many people are choosing GMRS over ham radio. Now, I'm going to give a small disclaimer here at the beginning. I watched Randy's video, I laughed at it, I commented on it. I have invited him prior to me ever seeing this video. I have invited him to be on the Ham Radio Happy Hour. I look forward to him joining us. So this is not a bad mouth against him. This is a rebuttal against his video about the top 10 reasons why people choose GMRS over ham radio. And let's face it, this was I don't want to call it a clickbait video, but this was a video This was a video that was meant to garner your attention and meant to make you click on it and watch it through. And he did a very good job with it. In my opinion, it's not clickbait because he advertised something and he provided that thing in the video. But I wanted to go through the 10 reasons he gave as to why GMRS is better than ham and prove that those are not good reasons. Now, I hope Randy comments on this video. I hope he comes back and records another video in response to this video, and we can kind of keep going back and forth. So no hard feelings to Randy at all, but these are some reasons that are just, some of them are just absurd, and some of them prove that he's not a ham radio operator, which is okay. I recorded a video in February of 2021 comparing ham radio to GMRS, and the gist of that video is that at the end, you should choose both. You should choose both, okay? Because each has their place. Each has good points, each has bad points, if you want to call it that, and each has a place for someone who wants to do radio communications. Each has their place. I even did a video comparing ham radio to CB and a couple of other modes as well, so each one has their place. So this is not a new topic for me. I've talked about this before, and I want to talk about it again because this is a response to Not a Rubicon, top 10 reasons why GMRS is better than ham. Not. Randy's 10th reason is that GMRS is easier to get a license and a superiority complex is not required. By him saying that, it sounds like he's feeling superior to people who have ham radio licenses. And so it's almost kind of contradictory, maybe a little bit hypocritical for him to say that. Now, again, he's funny in his own way, and I did laugh at his video, but yeah, kind of contradicting in that reasoning there, I think. GMRS is easier to get. That's not untrue. He also says in the beginning of the video that hams are saying that he has had comments on his channel from ham radio operators who say, well, I've been a ham for over 25 years, and GMRS users get their license because they're too stupid to do ham radio. Honestly, okay, this is my honest statement for me right here. I have been a ham radio operator since 1994, so 28 years at the time of this recording. I have never heard anyone say that. I'm not saying it's never been said. I'm not saying no one's ever said it on his channel. I'm sure if he's regurgitating that comment, I'm sure it's true. I'm sure someone came along at some point in time and said something like that on his channel. I have never heard anyone say that. I've been involved in ham radio for 28 years, and I know a lot of excellent, well-minded people who are interested in ham radio, and I've never heard anyone say, well, GMRS users are just too stupid to be in ham. I've never heard people say that. Talks about a superiority complex, and I'm like, man, most of his top 10 reasonings are coming from comments he's had on YouTube. We all talk about those. I talk about comments on YouTube all the time. Be glad you're not on the QRZ's news forums, okay? Because the comments on YouTube, honestly, are pretty tame. They're like first, second grade level comments. You want to get into some high school and college and graduate school level of hateful comments, get on QRZ.com and peruse around the news article forum. Comments on YouTube are pretty tame. Be glad that you only have to deal with YouTube comments. His ninth reason is that ham radio is a hobby. And GMRS is a tool. Yes and no. Ham radio is a hobby. That's very true. It's also a lot more than that. Who do they call? Who does the National Weather Service call when there's tornado watches and warnings coming through the area? Who does the National Weather Service call upon to get information about hurricanes or about natural disasters in the area? It's not GMRS operators. Ham radio has a thing called Skywarn, a thing called ARES, which is the Amateur Radio Emergency Service, and another thing called RACES, which is the Radio Amateur Civil Emergency Service, and these all work in conjunction with one another with the National Weather Service to do storm spotting, to do storm chasing, to do natural disaster watches and preparedness, to do cleanup after the fact. When Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans a few years back, ham radio, or radio in general, was the only way to send traffic messages into and out of the area. Same thing happened with 9/11 in New York. Radio communications, both short range and long range, are useful for sending traffic into and out of disaster areas post the emergency. GMRS can be used for that, but due to its short range, there's no HF in GMRS. It's one band and one frequency. It's not as useful for doing that type of thing. So while yes, ham radio is a hobby, it's a hobby that prepares you to use your radio in a real world emergency where you might be called upon to do so by National Weather Service or some other type of organization in that regard. Number 8, this is my favorite one. This is my favorite one. His number 8 is that if you're a GMRS operator, you are not required to recruit anyone to be a GMRS operator. Unlike hams, who always proselytize, and we try to encourage people to get interested in ham radio. Yes, that is true. Guess what? The very point of your video, Randy, is to get people interested in GMRS. The title of your video is Top 10 Reasons Why GMRS is Better Than Ham Radio. How is that not proselytizing and preaching for GMRS? You made a video that said one of the reasons why GMRS is better is because GMRS users don't preach about GMRS, and then throughout the video, you're preaching about GMRS. Again, I thought this was a really funny video. I enjoyed it. I'm going to go watch it again. Number 7 was using GMRS radios can talk to FRS radios, and FRS radio users don't have to have a license, so you don't necessarily have to have a licensed. You can communicate with unlicensed people over GMRS, unlike ham radio. This is true. This is true. This is a good point. Now, those FRS radios are limited in power. Most of them are half to 1 watt, maybe 2 watts at the very most. They have short, stubby antennas. Their range is even less than GMRS's range. So it's not like you're going to be picking up a radio and talk to someone on the other side of the city, okay, or a couple cities away or something like that. But yeah, if you're out together in a camping trip, if you're out together at the hunting lease, which is where I use my GMRS quite a bit, yes, you can absolutely talk to other people without licenses. It's a very watered down reason, in my opinion, but it actually is a true statement to say that GMRS users can talk to FRS users, unlike ham radio operators, which don't share frequencies with another radio service, such as FRS. Number 6 is that GMRS radio is easier to use. He doesn't use the word pre-programmed, but when he tells you why he thinks that, it's because, you've got channels 1 through 22. You dial up the channel, you hit the push to talk, and you say your call sign, and you start calling your friend. Easier to use does not equal better. Yeah. GMRS radio is easier to use if you get a pre-programmed radio. Guess what? You can get pre-programmed ham radios as well. BetterSafeRadio.com is a website that sells both GMRS and FRS and CB and ham radios. BetterSafeRadio.com. They will pre-program your Oshang radio for you. The GMRS radios are already pre-programmed, of course. They will pre-program your ham radio HT for you with 800 or 900 different commonly used channels, which include some monitoring channels for FRS and GMRS and Marine and all these other things. If you're looking for the easiest way out, sure. Yeah, GMRS is easier to use. I don't think better and easier are synonyms. And in his title, he says the top 10 reasons that GMRS is better than ham. So while the statement is true, GMRS is easier to use, does that make it better? No, because better and easier are not synonyms. Sorry, no, that doesn't fly with me. Number 5 is that you can buy a sack of radios and have a $50 radio or a $500 radio, and you can talk to people and no one cares what type of radio you're on. This is pretty much true on ham radio as well, okay? But someone who's never been on the air may not even know this. Okay, so again, you're basing that reasoning about people caring what radio you're on. You're basing that reasoning on YouTube comments. If you get on the air at ham radio and you start talking to people, 98, 99% of people don't care what radio you're on. They might ask you and they may say, hey, your radio sounds really good today. What are you using? Oh, yeah, great. I'm using a Yaesu. I'm using a Baofeng. I'm using a Waxon Oshang radio. Okay, I'm using an Anytone. I'm using an ICOM, whatever. Yeah, they might ask about it because they're curious. There are some people out there that badmouth Baofeng radios. You're like, well, your radio sounds like crap. And most of the time, it's because the radio sounds like crap as compared to all the other radios on the air. But the actual act of thinking that you're going to get badmouthed because the type of your radio you're using while on the ham radio repeaters and on the air with ham radio just doesn't happen. Yeah, you get badmouthed in YouTube comments, but YouTube is not ham radio. His fourth reasoning is that GMRS works on Walmart and ChickfilA frequencies because they all use FRS and you can talk to those guys. Yeah, okay. Number 3 is that GMRS operators don't have to prove their manhood in the comments section. Go watch any YouTube video inside the subject of radio or outside the subject of radio. There are keyboard Rambos everywhere. Everywhere, okay? In fact, one of Randy's comments on his video says, thanks for all the negative comments because those help the algorithm. Number 2 is that leaving comments online doesn't require proof of how long you've been into GMRS. Neither does ham radio. Ham radio's been around longer. Ham radio's been around for 100 years or more. GMRS is fairly new in the game of radio. And the title of Randy's video also says that why so many people choose GMRS instead of ham radio for comms. Well, statistically speaking, that's not true. Because at the time of this recording, I just pulled some numbers from the FCC ULS. There's about 150,000 licensed GMRS radio operators in the USA. Now remember, GMRS is a USA-only radio service. Other countries have similar services that they call another name that might use similar frequencies, but GMRS, the General Mobile Radio Service, is a USA FCC licensed radio service. So is FRS. Okay, so you're only going to really find it in the USA. On the exact same frequencies and type of license. You can't take your license and travel to Europe and use it. Doesn't work that way. Ham radio is a worldwide effort, okay? So at the time of this recording, while there's 150,000 licensed GMRS users, there's over 680,000 licensed ham radio operators just in the USA. Worldwide, there's probably a couple million, 1.5 to 2 million, something like that. I didn't look up those exact numbers. I kind of follow it every few months. But there's closer to 2 million ham radio operators worldwide. And so to say that people are choosing GMRS over ham radio is actually not true. Here's another example I'll give you right now. I attended the More Expo in Springfield, Missouri in April of 2022. This is an overlanding show. Midland was there selling GMRS radios and FRS radios. Rugged Radios was there selling radios, okay? And there were people walking around talking to one another about GMRS. There were people at the booth talking about GMRS, what you could use, whatnot. I carried 2 radios on my belt, 1 GMRS and 1 ham radio. Yes, I'm a nerd. Okay, I got 2 radios on my belt. I look like a complete nerd walking around the show. During that show, I heard zero activity on GMRS. Nothing. I hit scan a couple times, so it scanned through all 22 frequencies just in case I was missing something by listening to one of the calling frequencies. Nothing. Zero activity. At that same show, I talked to 4 other ham radio operators on what we call our 2-meter FM simplex frequency, which is 146.52 megahertz. I talked to three or four other ham radio operators. I met 2 guys who were new. Kyle AA0Z was there with me. We talked several times. 2 other ham radio operators at that show who were just on the air and came back to me after Kyle and I talked. They came back and said, hey, where are you guys at? So at the More Expo, which is supposed to be GMRS-centric, and there were GMRS vendors there selling GMRS radios, there was no traffic on the air whatsoever. So GMRS radios supposedly only want to talk to their friends? Well, not when they're with their friends at a big show. Now, does that mean ham radio is better? No, it just means it was used more at that one location. His last and final reason, his top reason, his number 1 reason is that GMRS users use GMRS because it is what is best for them. So do ham radio operators. So do CB operators. So do LMR commercial operators. So do marine band operators. Everyone that has a radio on a specific service uses that radio service because it's what's best for them. I use GMRS not because it's what's best for me, but because it gives me another place to talk. It gives me access to certain repeaters and networks in my area and throughout the United States. I use ham radio because I've been into it for a lot longer. It's been around longer than GMRS radio. It's got a longer range on it than GMRS radio does. One of the most common questions I get on my GMRS videos is, how come no one talks about range? Not an easy question. People don't understand range. I'm actually working on a video for that right now, so stay tuned. Suffice it to say, ham radio has a much longer range than GMRS does. Now, Randy will say, well, but GMRS radios or GMRS operators don't care about that because all they want to do is talk to their friends. Okay, that's a fair statement, but guess what? You can do that in ham radio too. I've got 3 or 4 or 5 different VHF, UHF bands where I can talk to my friends in a close range situation, just like I did at the Moore Expo, and I met new people over the air while there was no activity on GMRS at all. So suffice it to say, these reasons that he gives, again, I don't want to call his video clickbait because, in my opinion, clickbait is something that is advertised and not provided. He advertised something, and he provided his top 10 reasons for why he thinks GMRS is better than ham. But in my opinion, his comments and his reasoning comes from a person who is not a ham, who's never been on the air, and who is going solely off of YouTube comments. Okay, all right. I can respect that. I mean, that's at least that's an honest way of looking at it. Okay, but in reality, these comments, these reasons are not very accurate. They don't have anything to do with real world ham radio operations, and they're not the type of attitude or sentiment that you hear on the air while operating ham radio. Put your comments below. Let me know what you guys think. 73, and thank you for watching today. Charlie's bee dance. Well, first of all, statistically speaking, that's untrue. Okay, the latest numbers on the FCC database clearly show that all right,